Welcome back to another episode of Lighting Literacy. Today I want to share my reframing of the term chronic absenteeism. This reframing exercise is based on a class assignment from my Leadership, Policy, and Advocacy course during my PhD program. Our professor challenged the class to find a term in educational policy and reframe it. Honestly, I felt really challenged because I couldn't immediately think of a term that bothered me enough to change. After some time of reflection, it finally hit me. Chronic absenteeism was the one. So what is chronic absenteeism? Chronic absenteeism is a familiar term to a lot of teachers, and it's an issue the Department of Education acknowledges as a problem throughout America. It defines it as students who miss at least 15 days of school in a year, and their study found over 7 million students met this criteria in the 2015-2016 school year. Additionally, they found students with disabilities were 50% more likely to fall into the 15-day criteria and be labeled as chronically absent. Although the data collection took place in the 2015-2016 school year, the information is still relevant to this issue today. We also need to think about and consider how large of a scale this study was and how much time it would take to analyze that data, group it, create all the wonderful interactive images they did to really convey what is going on in schools with absences. The Every Student Succeeds Act has influenced this collection of data and reporting to try to face this problem. The ESSA, or Every Student Succeeds Act, was adopted in December 2015, and the basis of it is to provide an equitable educational experience for students, require rigorous academic standards to prepare them for the future, which I think was already being done, but I digress. And it embedded assessment as a measure to make sure standards were being met by students. Promoted quality preschool and focus on accountability for schools when students did not make progress or where students did not graduate. Therefore, absenteeism is something a lot of schools are concerned about, to the point where they make certain types of rewards for being present at school to try to get more students to come to school. Understanding this history is crucial in understanding the impacts of absences, because state testing influences a lot of students' next steps. We have ACT, SAT, there's tests that predict their best path, and they take those results really seriously sometimes. Some of them don't. But when you miss content as a student in a course, it puts you behind. And if you can't catch up as that student, then of course your testing at the end isn't going to show mastery in the areas that you missed content for. Other subjects build on each other on previous content all year, which makes it even more difficult for students to catch up in fields like mathematics or science. ELA or English classes are a little easier to catch up because we move on to different texts, but certain analysis skills or writing skills can be lost, and that is really detrimental. The U.S. Department of Education has an interactive map that has various shades of purple to show percentages of students who are chronically absent, and it is really interesting to see certain areas like Alaska, Florida, and Utah with these multiple counties in the greater than 30% range, because the environmental factors of those places or things that happened during that year could have influenced those rates. The Midwest and northern states really seem to be dominated more by the less than 30% range. So why do we care about absences beyond those? There's a lot of different reasons that absences hurt children. Like I previously mentioned, the course content is a big part, but another part that people might not think about is the morale issues and the connection to your school environment and social standings and engagements with other students are hindered. So if they miss out on times with their friends, or they miss out on the social aspect of learning and that generative process that occurs during course discussions, it can really hurt them. The Department of Education argues being chronically absent prevents students from reaching developmentally appropriate markers, such as reading at grade level. That is something I think most teachers agree is a huge problem within our schools. And that is another problem to tackle on its own. But students who don't read at grade level by third grade are more likely to drop out of high school. And they also say that there was a study in Utah where students who fit the criteria for being chronically absent in 1 year between 8th and 12th grades were 7 times more likely to drop out of high school than other students. 7 times feels like a huge number to me. Even though some people might be like, oh, that's not that much. If I was 7 times more likely to win the lottery tomorrow if I bought a ticket than if I didn't, or if I bought it on Wednesday, then I would do it. So we have to reframe how we think about some of these statistics too. Small numbers don't necessarily mean small consequence. The U.S. Department of Education also went on to argue that there's a correlation between high absences and students growing up to become adults living in poverty, having health problems, and they argued that they are more involved in the criminal justice system, which I think is a euphemism for saying that students who drop out or who are frequently absent are more likely to engage in criminal activities. My experience personally as a student is relevant to my feelings about reframing this. And I have a confession. I, a certified reading specialist, certified teacher, was once chronically absent. That's right. Hold the phones. I was chronically absent. I went to a school with block schedule, and each semester I took 4 classes. And unfortunately, during my junior year, spring semester, I had strep throat, mono, and bronchitis all at the same time. I missed a significant amount of school. And as a student who missed almost a month of school, it was extremely difficult to catch up. Even with students sending packets home and going above and beyond, some days I felt too sick to concentrate. Some days I did the work and I felt like every little cough, a little bit of that knowledge just drifted right out of my brain. It was frustrating. I felt helpless. I worked diligently, and when I returned to school, I was giving up my lunch. I was going in before school. I was meeting with teachers whenever I could. I slowly became obsessed with catching up and let a lot of my times with my friends that I could have been enjoying started dissipating. This was also in 2009, so this is pre-Google Classroom, pre-Canvas learning management online systems, pre-email being the norm. So even though I had these wonderful teachers that helped me, my dream of becoming on the valedictorian list was shattered that semester. I received my first C ever. My GPA was never going to recover, and I could have gone a different way if I wasn't so motivated, if I didn't know that I wanted to be a teacher, if I didn't know that I had to go to college to reach my goals. My other classes were A's and B's. That was normal. And I thought, okay, I've caught up. Maybe that's the end of it. But I was wrong. One day, my parents received a letter from the school, and it said that I was receiving an NCO, or no credit offer, for my classes that spring because of my absences. I felt so defeated. Why did I give up all those lunches? Why did I go in before school? Why was I spending so much time trying to catch up, trying to relearn, using my math textbook and doing every practice problem in it if I wasn't going to receive credit? I felt angry. Luckily, there was an appeal process, and the doctor's notes I had helped me out. And I had shown that, when you have mono, it's extremely contagious. And I was told I had to stay home. I was doing what the doctor ordered, literally. I had an assistant principal who advocated for me, and he saw me as more than the statistics, more than my attendance record. And that's the power of a great leader and of a leader who cares about their students. Once everything was submitted, I entered this weird state of limbo. Would I go on to senior year with my friends? Would I have to repeat my classes in the fall and try to take senior English in the spring? Would I have to stop taking French to catch up? Building this case made me feel almost like I was a criminal, and I was just hoping the jury that was the school board would understand and that they would support me and they would find me not guilty of chronic absenteeism, and I would be able to proceed as normal. In the end, I was able to receive credit and move on. However, not every student is so lucky. This brings me to the reframing. According to the U.S. Department of Education study, I was at risk of a lot of issues, but I overcame those statistics. My experiences really challenged the idea of chronic absenteeism because when people think of this word chronic, it's a sickness. It's unending. It is a life sentence. You will have this thing with you forever. People who say they have chronic back pain or knee pain are saying there's no healing, no solution, no hope. Proposing a change, acknowledging this situation for what it really is what I want to do by reframing it and redefining chronic absenteeism into bound absenteeism. I propose bound absenteeism as a way to reflect how people are absent sometimes for reasons beyond their control. This brings me to the things that bind us. Things that bind us to our home include health reasons, like I had to stay home because I was bound by social norms and by doctor's orders to stay home when I was sick. During crisis teaching in the pandemic, I had many students who were taking care of younger siblings, and they could not attend live sessions. Even in non-pandemic teaching, students sometimes had to stay home to help with family obligations, whether it's watching a younger sibling that can't stay home by themselves, or helping with a harvest, or something else. Transportation access to schools also poses difficulties. Students are bound by their resources. So when I was a public school teacher, I had so many students who would be absent because we didn't have enough bus drivers to run all the bus routes. And so sometimes they would not be able to go to school. That is not their fault. That is not some chronic psychological issue within that child that makes them not want to get on a bus. It's just not there. So finding solutions requires us to not come from a privileged stance, but because it's really privileged to say, all these are chronically absent, all of these situations are the same, because the term does not encompass or showcase how the person as an individual faces different things, that the burdens that are on our students prevent them from entering school. Until we do that, until we lead with empathy, we will not be able to find an actual solution. Reframing this term still honors the research that the U.S. Department of Education did, but if we want to fix the problem in schools, if we want to find a solution to help families, if we want to help students get to school and stay in school so they can learn and not be overwhelmed by the catch-up game, then we have to stop using a term that doesn't show hope, that doesn't show empathy. How would you feel if you were told, well, you were chronically absent, no credit offered this year? How do you feel? How do you carry that into the next school year? The next day, the next week, the next month? It changes everything. So giving an attendance certificate at an assembly is not enough to keep kids in school, and it is once again rewarding students for the resources they have. So we need to shift that. We need to stop punishing students for their bound absenteeism. We need to find a way to work with them to make sure that they have access to education. We need to fix our thinking, develop a stance that says we are going to bring healing by providing solutions. We can Zoom students in. We have technology. If they don't have a computer, okay, then they have a phone, let's put them on speakerphone. Let's record our lectures. Let's find a way that they can access content in a more timely fashion to where they are not playing catch up as hard, and they can honor the things that bind them to certain geographic locations at certain times while also maintaining their stance in their educational process. Let's fight this idea that it's helpless. Let's use the tools that COVID taught us. Let's use the technology we have. That's the only way we're going to make progress. Thank you for joining me this week on Lighting Literacy. I really hope that you'll reflect on the reframing of this term and consider other terms that you might want to advocate to reframe for a better and more equitable learning environment. I'll have my sources down in the show notes, and I'll see you next time.